Alright guys, Hatchcomic again today. Hope you're doing that and enjoying your day so far. Big rumours as to what the upcoming CDL season is going to look like, and this is a controversial one for sure. Over the last few years we have had 8 teams at the World Championship and of course all 12 teams at every single CDL major. This year though, that may well be changing. Rumour has it at least one of the majors this year may only be an 8-team event. What are the reasons for this? Why are we getting to this point? What do the teams think about it? Is it just to save money on the poverty organisations that don't want to pay to fly to these events? What does it mean for the fans and the rest of the league going forwards, because there is so much optimism around this season, but there are some reasons to be concerned as well. Very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. We've got plenty to dive into. Wanted to start here. Top KD of every CDL season so far. We have had 5 of those 6 seasons with a FaZe player, and it's almost always been Cellium, right? But still, the #1 KD of all time in the league belongs to Mr. Level Below Pro, Samuel Octane. He set the record in 2020 MW19 when, you know, he did have a certain style about him that season in terms of the way that he approached the game. I don't know that Clayser said that he just sat in a window the whole time, and look, that's what his team required. That's what he did, and he got a load of kills doing it. So he had a 1.25 that season on Surge. The team wasn't that good, as we know. But then he escaped and won the World Championship a couple of years later and became one of the most complete COD players that we have ever seen towards the tail end of his career. Cold War, it was Simp with a 1.15, actually the lowest on this list, which is kind of interesting, but also the only SMG on this list, which is fair enough as well. And then since then, it has just been Cellium. Now, I guess interestingly enough, Cellium's KD over the last few years has gone down every year, but it's still been the highest, right? So in Vanguard, he had a 1.24. Cell was on demon time that game, that's for sure. Dashy, I think, was second that year with a 1.20 or something. The Modern Warfare, Cell also had the top KD, and then Black Ops 6, the same story as well. Of course, it is interesting to think about, right, that, you know, they won champs in Cold War, but since then, they've not won champs, right? And Cell, yeah, he's had the hair evolution over the last few years, as we mentioned in the quotes. But, you know, is Cell going to top it again next year, right? Is it possible? It's definitely possible, but I wouldn't say that it's overwhelmingly likely given his move to Falcons. But of course, there was lots of discussion on a graphic such as this. This I thought was also interesting from Brian's stats. On 2 different franchises in the CDL, there's been 19 players who have won on 2 or more franchises. So of course, players have won on 1, but to win on a franchise, move to another one and win again. Now, the number is actually 20 because he missed off Scump here, which is pretty funny. He won for Huntsman and then also for OpTic Texas, as it became, which of course were 2 different franchises, right? Because, well, the Chicago Spart was different to what eventually was the Texas Spart, but the record belongs to 3 players, really. Envoy has won on Huntsman and Thieves and Ultra. Huke has won on Empire and LAG and OpTic. Now, you could say that Empire and OpTic are the same thing, so there's some debate in that. But anyway, Priester, FaZe, Rocker, and the Subliners. Plenty of others at 2 as we go down the list, and as I say, the list should be rounded out to 20 because Scump should indeed have been there, which is pretty funny. We did talk about the rumours yesterday that Boston might be looking to get Nastie. We think that it's probably going to be Purge, Snoopy, Cammy staying around, with Nastie joining on as the 4th. Again, I know lots of you guys are making the points, given Boston's budget and kind of where they sit in the league and stuff like this, they do tend to do a pretty good job with the resources they have. Like, I think Boston and Toronto, given the resources they've had and the players that they've found through their pipeline and stuff like this, they've done a pretty respectable job of it. I think certainly better than most organizations. Minnesota have arguably done the worst job of it, right? Because they have spent pretty big money over the last few years and not really achieved much, and, you know, barely qualifying, if not qualifying at all, as for the last couple of years for the Call of Duty World Championship. But speaking of qualifying for events, it could be a key talking point of the upcoming season. So JK last night comes out and says the COD League is considering trialling an 8-team major in the Call of Duty League 2026 season. So here we go again, right? Now, in the original CDL in 2020, as it was going to be, that's what we had, right? We did home series and there were only 8 teams. Now, these were meant to be initially on LAN, and they were initially, then they all came online. But we also had like 10 of them, right? 10 or 12 of them, whatever it was. There was a lot of these home series during the season. And yeah, no one was especially happy that it was 8 teams, but also crucially these home series, they were 8 teams effectively randomly selected on a rotation. You didn't qualify for them, you just got invited or you didn't. So it meant that sometimes Dallas might win, but OpTic weren't there, or FaZe might win, but Dallas weren't there. So then there were questions on what was really going on, and then there was a World Championship at the end of the season. So it's not like we haven't done this before. And you could also argue that the bottom 4 teams, what value do they really add? Maybe not all that much in the first place. But the value they do add is, of course, to some of the fans. Fans want to go to an event knowing that they can go and watch their team or their favourite player play. What if their favourite team doesn't qualify for it? Okay, if you're an OpTic fan, you were at least mildly concerned, but then relatively confident that OpTic would at least qualify for Champs, which of course they eventually did. So yeah, if you booked your ticket to Champs, OpTic did qualify, expected, right? A whole season you're expecting to make it work. But over a single major cycle, how is that potentially going to play out? So anyway, this is the bottom line. JoeDeceives does this article here and discusses how the 12 franchises are now basically entirely different to what they have been before. In the opening season, instead of majors, we had homestand events, so he does mention that right about here. Back in the day, of course, the CWL, we used to have 32 teams at the World Championship. Now, this is kind of remarkable to me. In 2026, the CDL is considering hosting a similar 8-team event with teams able to earn their seeding and ticket to the event through an 11-match round-robin qualifier split. As online, of course. Well, it doesn't say online specifically, but presumably online, obviously, as opposed to the previous 7 matches against randomly assigned teams. So, we'll talk about what event it's going to be in a second. The thing I wanted to firstly mention is, this is, I think, a consequence of having it in DreamHack. Now, yeah, it's an event in the UK, I'll take it. But it is one of the necessary implications of needing to align the CDL schedule with what's going on at DreamHack. Because as we know, DreamHack is right at the end of March, which, as I've said over the last few days, means there is a massive gap probably before DreamHack. If Toronto's event is end of January, early February, there's a big gap there. That means that our, 5 weeks of matches to do 7 qualifiers or whatever we've had last year for a time, that is potentially going to be way more weeks of qualifiers, and as a result, they think they found a way to actually make it full round robin. And in some ways, that's kind of interesting, right? Every team will play every other team, all 11 teams, over the course of many a week online, and we'll get to see over that whole split who really is the best, right? We get a single round robin, and everyone plays everybody else, so it's fair in that sense. But do I want that? Like, no, I want more lands, right? Like, okay, great, I get 11 round robin match, but I don't really care, right? I want another LAN event. And I guess the theory is that, well, we can play 11 matches every team over the course of weeks and weeks of qualifiers to then mean that, well, we've done so many qualifiers that we can justify not sending the bottom 4 teams and only sending the top 8. Now, I think the other reason for this is that it's likely to be only a 3-day event, and rumour has it it's going to be the Birmingham one at DreamHack to which this applies. It's going to be right at the end of March, which means they've got this big stretch before it to actually make this work. And he goes on to say that the intention is to make it a 3-day major rather than 4 days. So, and you know, that does align, right? Because we saw at DreamHack that it's the 27th to the 29th of March, so it is a 3-day event, and therefore they need to squeeze things into 3 days, which I think they did back in Dallas as well. But this intention is to, you know, basically only bring 8 teams so that they can do that more easily. So that's one of the ideas. I mean, it's pretty funny. Apparently, this is what's been said. It's a test and a pilot. The reasoning provided was to create more consequential stakes and generate storylines for the qualifier matches. So, you know, I guess there's some truth to that, not even qualifying for the big tournament, but, you know, qualifying for losers. Like if you start in losers bracket, already you know you're kind of cooked anyway, but at least it gives you a chance. You get to play in front of the fans. At least if you're a fan of a certain team, you can still go up and watch them, right? So I think that's a bit of an issue. And they say that, oh, it's a true double elimination tournament. So to me, that just sounds like marketing spin to the teams and to the fans eventually to make it sound like, oh, this is actually a good thing for this reason. But the reality is, as far as I see it, that there's plenty of other reasons why this is being done. Now, is money also a factor here, right? Because we know that money is always a factor, but only 8 teams means that 4 of the teams don't have to come, right? And okay, they don't qualify to come. The players would want to come and play, obviously. But if they don't come, then who's going to pay for them to go? They don't have to get paid, right? Like the league or the teams or however it works don't have to pay for their flights and everything out to the UK to come and play the event in Birmingham. So maybe that's part of the plan as well. It's very interesting, I think, that they're going down this route. I'm a bit concerned if they talk about it being like a pilot or a test event or something. And I understand that if you want to do an event over 3 days, maybe this is a sensible way to do it. But again, it is because of the limitations of doing it with DreamHack. Now, JKL says, what would be cool if they had all the teams in Birmingham, or preferably London, and played the qualifiers on LAN in the week leading up to the event. I mean, I don't know what world JKL's living on, what planet he's from, that he thinks that, I mean, he doesn't think this is, like, obviously this is not going to happen, right? This is wishful thinking. This would be cool, I agree. The chances of it happening are unimaginably slim. So, you know, let's not even dwell on the possibility of that. We are going to be doing these qualifiers online, I'm sure. There's just no other way. And again, from like a cost perspective, some of the, like, I don't know, the poverty orgs, even if they still exist, but some of these orgs are probably like, oh yeah, well, you know, we'd have to pay the players for that event or whatever. But then again, I guess they get no money, right? They get no money for the results of the event, so maybe they're not going to be too happy about it. But understandably, there was some reaction to say, well, hang on a second here. DreamHack Dallas was 12-team events and a ton of challenges. So what are we going to do? 8-team major? Is there going to be challenges there, right? So yeah, there was a lot of discussion about it, and Adam Apicella was getting at it in the replies, being like, look, let's please try to make this work. Dareal even says, I could see it as a way to reduce logistical costs for teams who don't or can't field competitive rosters or bottom feeder teams. Seeing budgets with New York, logistics for events contributed a large part of operational costs league-wide, even with diligent spend. So, you know, there you go. Maybe there's something in that. The teams that are terrible, they're like, we don't want to fly our players across the planet to go and play this tournament, so we'd prefer just to bomb out and not even qualify so we can stay at home. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's what's going on, maybe it's not. Of course, there's going to be some debate about it. Aroma was like, oh, well, this is good because Counter-Strike do it. But yeah, I'm not really going to get into the debate on that. Even Major Maniac says, man, as players and fans, the CDL era or CWL era very much spoiled us. And it does feel a little frustrating because I don't think anyone is really going to argue that this is a step in the right direction. I know that the league are going to make this point about, oh, well, it creates more interesting storylines for the qualifiers because some teams don't even go. But the storylines are already interesting enough. Do you start in winners or losers? Like, that's already compelling enough. Not even going is another point. And I do think it's a bit concerning when it comes to fans of certain teams. Look, these are the rosters we think as they presently stand. Maybe you're a massive fan of Cellium, the Falcons, you know, you want to see him go and play, but they might not even qualify, right? I mean, who knows? And then they're not even going to be there. So, I don't know what you guys think about this, but I have a very difficult time imagining that this is actually a good thing. So, intrigued to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
Raid's another one that looks really... Bro, Raid looks fire. Wait a second. Wait a second. Did they change? Wait, all this water here is interesting. Wait, am I fucking... The water was never there, right? Wait a second. Was the water always there? Was the water always there, bro? Oh, no, the water was always there. Because I remember no, you know what? I remember now. No, I remember now. I forgot that the water was there. No, I'm just extremely faded. I'm actually not faded at all. What is those things where it's like it's there, but you don't remember it's there? Or vice versa? What is that called again? What the fuck is that called, chat? Like, remember they used to do that back in the day?